Have you ever noticed that sometimes, like your mind just won't shut off? Like you can replay conversations, you think about things like you should have said, maybe even going over situations in your head like again and again and again, trying to figure out like what happened, like or what did that mean? And it's like the more you think about it, the harder it becomes to stop thinking about it. The more you think about it, the harder it becomes to stop thinking about it. And then it's like what this turns into is like overthinking. You don't wanna keep thinking about it, but you keep thinking about it. So then it turns to overthinking. And psychologists calls this like rumination. And what that is that it happens when the mind like keeps playing situations repeatedly, and it plays like situations, conversations, emotional experiences, like you just keep thinking about it over and over. And then what happens is it's like your brain is trying to analyze the moment, and it's like searching for answers or trying to like prevent the same thing from happening again. And so, what many people don't realize though is that like overthinking, it often is not like about being weak or being weak-minded or anything like that. It's actually your brain is basically trying to protect you. And it's like when something emotional happens, especially like something that is painful or confusing, the brains go into it, just takes off and goes into like problem solving mode, trying to solve the problem, because if it's saying, oh, it's a problem, let me try to solve it. And what it does is it tries to prepare you so you don't get hurt again. Yeah. But what happens is like when the brain gets stuck, it goes into that loop, and then the thinking now is not like clear, and you won't have clarity. And that's why, because your brain's in that loop. And then what that does is because your brain's in that loop, keep trying to find clarity and stuff like that, then that's when you start having exhaustion because it's over and over again. Because overthinking can like activate your stress response. And so what happens then is because your stress response has been activated, and remember I talked about this before, that then your nervous system stays alert because now this has been activated. And then what happens is your mind is still trying to scan to look for the answers to what it needs. And next thing you know, before long, what started as like one thought, then it turns into like a chain of thoughts, or like a multitude of thoughts over and over. It started out as just one though. And then once it turns into the chain of thoughts, then it's sometimes impossible to shut it down because now you're just constantly thinking about all this stuff. And that's why it's like people that overthink, they often feel like mentally drained. And that's why you feel so drained, because when you were overthinking all the time and in these loops all the time, then you get emotionally drained, and then like you're not even able to relax, and that's why. Yep. But it is something important that I do want you to understand, because just because that thought entered your mind, it doesn't mean you have to follow the thought. I can't talk. Just because the thought enters your mind, it doesn't mean you have to follow that thought along. It may have entered your mind, but you don't have to like trace it and say, okay, let me think about this. Oh, well, you know what? I'm going to think about this too. Oh, and that just reminded me. See how that can go on and on. Just because it pops in your mind, it doesn't mean you have to follow it. Because sometimes the mind replays situations because there's still emotional pain connected to that experience. Yep. And if you start to slow down and pay attention to what's happening, then you can start to figure out like what your mind is actually trying to process. Yeah. Okay, let me give you an example. For example, if you're feeling hurt, you would think, you try to process it. Okay, am I feeling hurt? Or are you feeling uncertain or unsure about something? Or are you searching for closure on something? See, so it's like when we think of it like that and start searching ourselves and asking ourselves those questions, then it's like when we begin to understand like what our mind is doing, then we can start guiding it instead of fighting it and struggling and going into the loops. Yep. Because sometimes the most powerful thing you could do, like in moments of overthinking, is just pause. Just steady your mind. Be like, no, I'm not about to just have my mind going in loops right now. I'm just gonna pause. Let me slow down. Okay? Yep. So just slow down, take a breath, step away from the mental loop. Because again, it's like going in circles, thinking about the same thing over and over and over. And that's why I keep doing like this, because if I imagine a loop, if you keep thinking about it over and over, you're just in the same like loop over and over, thinking about the same thing. But you need to give your mind some time to just rest. Yeah. Because peace doesn't come from like solving every single thought. We'll never be able to solve every single thought. I know I used to do that. I try to solve everything because I, I like solving problems and I like having control of my life. But I had to learn like I can't solve every single thing, and not every single thing is gonna have an answer right now. And then also like, why am I stressing out? I just have to give it to God. Like I don't have control anyways. So, peace does not come from solving every single thought. So just remember that. Sometimes peace comes just from simply letting your mind settle just long enough to remember that, hey, not every situation needs to be replayed. Yeah, not every situation needs to even be replayed. And when your mind finally slows down, then what happens is you can create space for clarity, for healing, for peace. Yep. So let your mind slow down, sis. Get it in, let it slow down. Don't think and think and think and get stuck in the loop, okay? All right. If this message helped you, please like and subscribe. And as always, I'm wishing you peace, love, joy, and happiness. Have a great day, sis.